to An Awful World, but not awful like you think.
This is the show where we discuss whether we would have discovered important advances in a world exclusively full of Haylies and Libbys. I'm Haylie.
And I'm Libby. And today we're talking about cartography. Maps, baby. So, that's a lot of excitement over such a scientific topic because, whoa, cartography is a beast.
And it looks hard.
It looks so hard. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yes, let's.
Oh my God. So maps. Cartography has not been around in earnest quite as long, but like our first indication of like a map is hella old.
Super old.
Like 25,000, wait, math is hard. 25,000 BC. Did I mean 100? No, I didn't. 25,000 BC. It was like on a mammoth tusk in like modern day, like where the Czech Republic is.
Oh, okay.
So very interesting that they were like, we'll carve it on this mammoth tusk.
Yeah.
And it had like, you know, I think it's like it had some features that made it look kind of mappy, but obviously nowhere near as sophisticated as like what we came up with later.
Right.
But Homer, those damn Greeks, they're all so fucking smart, is considered like the founder of like cartography, at least in the Greek realm, because he was the first one to like really consider the concept of like the earth and what it looked like.
Gotcha.
So that's where it all begins.
See, I had that even before the Greeks. Our good old friends.
Babylonians.
The Babylonians.
I know, I didn't even mention them. How rude of me.
That they were using clay tablets, and they were showing like surveying type maps.
Mm-hmm.
They used a lot of like very early surveying techniques, and their maps were of like hills, valleys, that kind of thing.
Like topography.
Yes, but then the Greeks is where like paper maps began.
Yes, which is fascinating. So then Ptolemy is his last name. What's his first name? Did I write it down?
I only had Ptolemy.
Claudius Ptolemy.
Claudius.
He
Santa
is
Claudius.
The true birth of cartography.
Yes.
I feel like I need to say it like that. He wrote what was called Geographia, and it outlined like a system of latitude and longitude, which is crazy because we still use that today. And he was also the first to like conceptualize a map that was like on a two-dimensional surface.
Yes.
Like a paper.
Yeah.
Which is, again, crazy. Because then it kind of came like full circle. Because now we have very 3D maps.
Yes.
Back on non-2D surface. Like, it's just interesting.
But now here's one thing. Because, so the Greeks, they're doing maps. They're doing grids, you know, whatever. But apparently at the same time, so was China.
Yes.
And they kind of just get to be a footnote. And they're like, the Greeks. And I'm like, but if China's doing the exact same thing and also using a grid system, that is also longitude and latitude.
Do you feel like the Chinese are frequently like, hello?
Yes. I'm like, racism at its finest.
Right.
Thank you, China.
Because you know what empires still exist? China.
Yeah.
Not like, obviously Greece exists.
It exists.
But I don't think anybody would consider it a world power today.
No.
Yeah. And the Roman Empire, did you hear that?
The only people who are still thinking about that are white men.
Cricket chirps is what I heard because ain't nobody talk about the Roman Empire still.
No.
Anyway, yes, the Chinese are like, hello, we also are creating basically a system of latitude and longitude. Yeah. So speaking of the Roman Empire, apparently after the Roman Empire falls, because it did, the map making, the cartography just kind of falls to the wayside. We just kind of stop caring.
I get that.
Which
map making is hard. I don't want to do it.
Relatable.
If the Greeks aren't going to do it, why would I? God.
If the Babylonians aren't going to do it, I don't want any part of it.
Exactly.
But then again, you should know, listener, that if we're ever talking about the Greeks or the Babylonians, chances are this is something that's not going to be easily discovered by us.
Yeah.
Or invented.
It's something that like you have to really be good with observational skills.
It's so many different skills in one. So like, not only is it like mathematical, right? There's so much math involved, but then like surveying, observing, trying to create like scale and things like, I mean, it's just, it's a wild concept.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think that we truly take like for granted, the 100%. Fact that we have maps.
Yes.
Because now maps are much easier for us to put together because we have satellites.
Yes.
And so we're just like,
and
we just take a picture of it and we're like, boom.
Yes.
Google Earth it.
Now let's recap. Last season, we discovered that we couldn't come up with photography.
No.
So that's really going to put a damper on our map making skills.
Yeah, because you guys think if we couldn't come up with photography, you're telling me that you think that we could send a camera, not even a camera, whatever a satellite is, into space.
Yeah.
And have it send pictures back to the Earth.
Or even like a plane with a person with a camera.
A picture.
Or like a plane with a person who's in the passenger seat, just like drawing it.
Or like a plane.
Yeah. I'm like, we're just like not getting to plane.
No.
So we're not getting to accurate maps.
Yeah. Which is what I think it's so like, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. But I don't know how the Babylonians, the Greeks, Claudius Ptolemy, I don't know how any of them conceptualize what this whole thing looks like.
Yeah, I don't either. And let's also like state that by the time the Greeks are making maps, they already understand that the Earth is round.
I know.
How? I don't know.
What? I know. I know.
Would the Haylies and Libbys know that the Earth is round?
No, I don't think so.
What?
No, I don't think so.
I just like don't understand like what tips you off. Like at what point are you like, I don't think we're on a flat surface.
I have no idea.
Like I believe in science.
Yeah.
We've seen satellite photos of the Earth.
We know the Earth is round.
We know the Earth is round. We are not flat earthers.
No.
And we are not stupid. In an awful world, I fear
we're flat earthers. We for sure are.
We gotta be.
And we'll have to look more into that. I think that's an interesting topic that we should definitely speak more about because I want to know how we figured that out.
All I can think is it's the Babylonians and the stars. And the 360, because 360 was with like time.
Because the Babylonians were really
stars,
smart.
And then that's a circle and the angles. And I bet you that it has something to do with that.
Yeah.
Would we have put all those things together?
No. Oh my God, no.
No.
I mean, astronomy in general, like
that was too hard.
I
thought we were going to cry just doing the research.
I know. It's just, no, it's just not going to happen.
No.
I'm not going to be able to figure out that like in so many days, this star comes back to being at the same point in the sky. Even if I thought that, I'm not sure that it would lead me to the conclusion that the Earth is round.
No.
Or that we're spinning. Or that we're spinning around something else while we're spinning.
Yeah, like we're spinning and we're like circling and it's
It's a lot of movement. It's a lot of twirling, a lot of pirouetting.
Yes.
And I don't really understand it. But just to even think about them trying to conceptualize like, okay, sure, the Earth is round. Even if we get that far, which I'm not confident in, then you have to think about, well, what's the circumference of the Earth? How far around? And I don't even know how you understand or conceptualize that without going around the Earth.
No, I would be like, okay, so now I'm going to get a piece of paper. And then someone else will get a piece of paper. And
we'll keep stacking them until we go all the way across the world.
Yes.
You just start counting paces.
We'll be like that picture in The Year Without a Santa Claus, and it's all the children of the world, and they're like circling the whole Earth. And that's like each of us, and we're all like measuring our
arm
wingspans.
to arm.
Yes.
Okay. Now everybody link up.
And then we'll be like, okay, so the world is 6 million people long.
What are we going to do with the ocean?
We're just going to line up the boats.
Another 20-foot boat, another 20-foot boat,
right.
A 35-foot boat.
I bet you we could come up with rope and then we'll just like link all the boats together. It's fine.
What we're going to create is a giant measuring tape.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to I can't even conceptualize how they figured this out. And then I start thinking about, and like, obviously, like when you're researching cartography, which we have to do when we do these episodes. And by research, I mean some light Googling.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a scientist. So like they have to start exploring, right? Uh-huh. Which is the age of exploration, definitely like the 1500s. Columbus sailed the ocean blue. The other guys,
Lewis and Clark.
Well, no, Lewis and Clark is the 1800s.
I know, but I was just, those are other explorers. No. I didn't know where we were going with this.
Like classic explorers.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Columbus.
Yes,
and then
there's someone with an M. Magellan,
yes, good job.
Thank you.
And then Cortez, he discovered Florida. And
all of these are terrible, terrible people.
Uh-huh.
So do you have to be terrible to be a cartographer?
No, I don't think so.
Maybe just an explorer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So anyway, you have to go out and you're just sailing. And you're like, I guess I'll just go until I hit something.
Yeah, but then you're like, ooh, I'm going to go to India for spices. And then you hit a totally different country. And then you're just like, this is the one I meant to be. And these are Indians now.
And I'm not going to use those spices in any of that English food.
And also, I'm actually going to hit an island that's like not that country, but I'm also going to claim that I discovered that country too. Yeah. And
even though there are people already here.
Yeah.
Like, well, sorry, I discovered it. Anyway, we're getting a little bit to the,
that's a different topic.
Yeah, colonization of the world. We'll get back to that at some point, maybe. I don't know if I even want to talk about colonization. But anyway, mapping. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you jump in your little Pinto, your little Nina, your little Santa Maria.
You said jump in your Pinto, and I was like, the car? Why do we have these?
It was named the Pinto, right? The Pinto, Nina, and the Santa Maria?
Is it the Pinto or the Pinta?
Whatever.
Something.
I am hungry, so I have pinto beans on the way.
Beans.
So anyway, you jump in your little Nina. And you're
it's like a little speedboat.
And you're just bebopping across the Atlantic.
Yes.
Which we know is the Atlantic now.
Yes.
How are you measuring how far you're going?
I assume by days. You're like, this is this many days long.
But how do you put that on a map? You see what I mean?
Yeah, here's what I'm thinking. So you know how fast your ship normally goes because you're normally going from like one port to the next.
Okay.
So you would be like, it's, I don't know, 50 feet from this port to that port. And that's where I'm taking the Nina.
That's a lot of ports close together, but go on.
I know. I'm just trying to give a round number.
I know.
So then I would be like, it takes me 20 minutes. To
move 50 feet? These are bad ships. Go on.
I mean, we don't have motors.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. No, you said that the Nina was a speedboat.
We don't have math, but we do have speedboats.
We totally have invented motors by this point, by the way.
But so then you go over there and you're like, okay, it took me 20 minutes. So then if I'm going the same amount of like speed or we'll just guess, then we'll just be like, okay, well, if this took me 3 days, then how many of 20 minutes is that? This is becoming a lot of math and I'm getting checked out by my own story.
Do you see what I mean? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Though? I think I would just be like, a long ways. And then be like, this map is not to scale.
We sailed a long ways across this ocean.
Went through the swirly, twirly gumdrops.
And through the Lincoln Tunnel. That is a quote from Elf, in case you didn't know. So at one point we have this we're not giving credit to the Islamic people very much because apparently they were also very, very excellent cartographers.
I mean, but are you surprised? Because as we have learned, history is written by the white people.
I mean, yeah, no, I'm not surprised that we're just like the Europeans. And we're like, okay. But apparently the Islamic people were also...
well, thank you, Islamic people.
Yes. So the Islamic people, there was one guy, and I'm so sorry that I didn't write down his name because I was afraid I was going to butcher it.
I get that.
And I'm not even going to say what his first name was because it's a stereotypical Islamic first name. And if I say that, then I'm just going to sound stupid. I'm like, his name is this something, something. I don't know. You'll have to look him up. But his name was very long and I was afraid I was going to butcher it. And I didn't want to do that because he had some great ideas. And one of his ideas was like, hey, cartography scholars, I want you to figure out what the circumference of the earth is.
Ooh.
And by God, they did it. They figured it out. And when they came up with, calculating circumference of the earth, we're going to start making these maps. They created this really cool map that not only was a map, but also had like lots of like cultural information on it and like religious beliefs. So like in this area of the world, this is how the culture is, which I thought is really cool.
That's super nice.
I know. What a way cooler map than like something that we have now.
Yeah.
So they do that, that's what it is. That's fantastic. And then basically like things are just what they are until like medieval Europe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly at this point used for educational purposes. We're just like showing people like ideas of like, here's how we figure out like directions and land masses. Like this is just, we're just showing these ideas. We're not really like talking about exploring new worlds or anything like that. So mostly aesthetic. Storytelling purposes. We're using them for funsies.
I love that.
Yes. And then the age of exploration happens. And then in 1659, a man with a very interesting name, his name was Gerardus Mercator or Mercator. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Mercator.
Mercator. He produced a map that we still use today. And it's called the Mercator projection. Yeah. You're like emphatically like, yes, of course, like everybody knows
like this. Every social studies teacher has ever like been like, this is the Mercator map, and I'm like,
I did not know that. Honestly, I don't really remember any social studies classes,
except it like really distorts things.
Yes. So that's the first word I have written after it, is that it distorted the size of things closer to the poles.
Yes.
Which is like how the earth is. Allegedly. I don't really know. So that's so interesting to me. And then, things keep going because of the printing press.
Yes.
Which, of course, all roads.
Always the
fucking roads lead to the printing press. So, cartography. And that's the episode. So thanks so much for joining us. No, I'm kidding. So... I mean, obviously, like modern day, it is so much easier because of all of our technology.
Yes, we can take pictures to get accurate, measurements and pictures and, all of that. And then we can print them out. We can mass produce them and send them all around the world, and everybody can have a version and blah, 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 blah. And I know that the Mercator map, I think, does get a lot of hate because of the way it's distorted, and then it does make like certain countries
look bigger.
And I think a lot of it is like the white countries.
Yeah.
And which again, are we surprised? No. Because who was Mercator? I'm sure a white man.
Yeah. And there are a bunch of Mercator haters is what they call themselves. I'm just kidding. I just named them that.
But unfortunately, it's the map we still use today.
Yeah.
And while a globe is going to be the most precise version that we can get, because you don't have to, flatten it out, and no matter what, it'll be distorted. But it's not like we're all carrying a globe around in our back pocket. I mean, I'm not even carrying a regular map in my back pocket. But
no, because you carry a phone around all day that has an entire map of the fucking world. You can, Google Earth.
Wild. You can just like drag that little person and be like, here's the street view.
And here's what it looked like on this random day in 2011.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? I'm like,
what?
Okay. Now, here's my thing. We're going to back up really quick.
Okay.
Because...
Please back me up. I get wrapped up in the history.
Let's go back to the Greeks really quick.
Okay.
And the Chinese.
Okay.
They're all doing a grid system. Longitude, latitude, meridians, all that jazz.
Tropics.
Now, not once in all my education did I ever put together that longitude and latitude is just a grid system.
Really?
And they're like, here's longitude.
Like coordinates.
And here's latitude. And these are coordinates. And I'm like, yep, that makes sense. And then I pack up my stuff from that class and I move on to something else. And it never, ever hit me until I was doing research yesterday that that's a grid system. When they're like, the Chinese were also using a grid system. And I was like, oh my God. And they're like,
so funny to me.
And they're like, that makes it so much more accurate when you use a grid system. And I was like, that really checks out.
You're right. It does make more sense. Yeah.
Would we come up with a grid system? I don't think I would.
No. And I mean, I think even asking the question of whether we'd come up with a grid system is assuming that we would even get so far as to be able to start to conceptualize like mapping the world or even just mapping the area in which we live in. You know what I mean?
I think we would have very rudimentary maps.
Yeah.
We could very much say, okay, my cave is here. Draw a little X.
Yeah.
And then we'd be like, all right, you're going to go through this group of trees.
Right.
Then you're going to see the stream. You're going to walk over like the little stones in the stream. And then you're going to go to the left. And then that's where Libby's cave is going to be.
I think we could do that too, that we could easily mark it down.
Yes.
Like, this is just something funny I was just thinking about. Video games, okay? When I play video games with my boyfriend, this man knows how to, he'll pull up the map, complicated, multiple levels, there's all kinds of shit going on. There's, symbols for vending machines where you can get guns and there's other whatever. And so, like, we played this video game where, like, your home base was, like, on this spaceship. This man knew his way around the spaceship so well, but every time we got back to this fucking spaceship, I would be like, damn it, how do I get to the place where I buy more guns from the guy? And he's like, well, you just go, and I'm like, I don't know where I am. I don't know how you can conceptualize where you are in this, in this ship. I felt the same way when I went on a cruise, where I was just, people were like, well, that's there. And I'm like, nope, sure don't.
I also have no like spatial recognition.
Can't conceptualize that. So I'm not super confident about that, which is interesting because you're a directionally challenged person. I am not.
Unbelievably.
I can picture like Indiana or like Indianapolis. I can picture that in my mind's eye and be like, if you go west, this is what you hit. If you go east, whatever. I can do that.
Not me. The amount of times where I point... I will be in my own home. I know nowhere as well as I know my home. And I'll be like, oh yeah, you go this way to get to the McDonald's. And Ty will be like,
no, you don't.
You go that way. And I'm like, no, this is how you, and he's like, no, you're not even facing the correct way. And I'm like, oh, you're right. Great. Love it.
Like, it's like, I know when we talked about compasses, like I can very easily conceptualize north, south, east, west. I got all that. And so if I'm standing in downtown Indianapolis, you could twist me, spin me around with a baseball bat and then stop. And I could be like, okay, I'm facing this direction. I could easily do that in downtown. That's why I think it's fascinating that my brain cannot conceptualize maps. And it's like, it's too much to take in.
It's a lot.
If I get it in smaller chunks, maybe.
Yeah.
But like on a cruise ship or on a video game, I can't. My brain can't understand it.
Yeah, I will say, so like growing up, my dad had like maps in like the backseat kind of a thing. Yeah. And
ran McNally.
And just like pre-GPS kind of a thing. And one time we were going somewhere and he was like, find this street. First of all, it was dark outside. And I was like 13. Don't ask me to read this map. Second of all, the map was like double the width of my like seat, you know, and I'm trying to find, there's 7 million different little lines. The font is like 7-point font, you know, kind of, I can't read any of this.
You're like, let me get my magnifying glass out.
Yes. And then he's like, it should be somewhere on there. And I'm like, could you at least say like, it's
a general vicinity?
Yeah, like the left, the right. And then he's like, come on, Haylie, you can't, it's not that hard. Just find this. And eventually, while he was driving, I threw the map at his face and said, you find it. Because I'm like, I'm sorry, I can barely read a map as it is. And now you're yelling at me in the dark. There's too many things on here. I can't find it. Now, Ty and I, when we went to Paris, when we got married, the subway systems, the metro, as they call it, they all have a bunch of maps, and they're like that too. And they're all in a different language. However, based on the train you're on, they have these big, thick, bright lines that are color coordinated so that it's
like you're on the red line, you're on the blue line.
Yes. So then you're just kind of like, okay, now all I have to do is
follow this.
How many until I find where I'm at.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't have to know the city. I don't have to know anything. I have to follow the colors.
Yeah.
I feel like this is how we would map.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think that makes it easier for people. Unfortunately, that requires someone at some point to be able to map a little.
I think that they will be not to scale.
No.
And I think that they will not be accurate, but they would be like, hey, follow this for this many stops, you know, follow the green trail,
right.
You know, but I don't think that outside of that, they would be very helpful. Like we wouldn't be like, yeah, if you follow this trail, but then you hop off onto this next one, you're like based off of the map, like you're really not actually there. Like you're just going to have to follow your one trail.
Yeah.
You know, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because something that I literally cannot fathom how this is done is like rivers.
Mm-hmm.
If you're walking next to a river, that just looks straight, right?
Yes.
But then how do you know where the squiggle is?
If you're looking up and you're like, okay, like I can see it like curves around up there.
Yeah. So do you just draw that now? But then how do you know when you're at the squiggle?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like I genuinely, even given all the research, I act like I spent like hours, like I wrote a dissertation on this.
You're like,
I'm like, I still don't understand. Given the 30 minutes of research I did yesterday on cartography, I still don't understand how we did it.
I genuinely don't know. And now something that makes me feel better is sometimes when you're like, this is what a really, really old world map looked like. And you're like, wow, like, that's so inaccurate. And that makes me feel so much better.
Yes.
But then you see ones like that are of rivers and things, and then they're not crazy inaccurate. And I'm just like, I just don't understand.
I don't either.
I don't get it. Unless it's going to make like a hard right. Then I'm going to be like, we're turning.
Easy.
Yes.
Yeah. So part of me wonders too, like, is this, I mean, if you asked our parents this same question, you know, like in a world exclusively full of you guys, could you figure it out? Do you think they'd say yes? And
if we're talking about my parents, they're going to say yes.
The reason I ask that is because I know that they had to rely on maps so much more.
That's true.
Than we did, right? Yeah. Like all the time I think about this. I think about like when they were young, like 20, let's say. So it's the late 80s for my parents. When you're going to a friend's house and they say, sure, come over to my place. You know, I live off of X and X road. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the first right after, and then you're going to, I mean, you have to give like detailed instructions. Yes. Nowadays, it's just like, hey, send me your address. I'll plug it in my phone and we'll just, Yeah. And so this is something I was thinking about this morning, ironically, because I was driving here. And I've been to your house 100 times probably. Yeah. But I moved last May. I moved in with my boyfriend, and so I was coming from a different direction. Today is the first day that I was like, I'm not going to use my GPS to get there. That is so unlike me to have to use GPS for that long, but I just like literally couldn't conceptualize like where am I? Like when I lived downtown, I knew I would get on 465 and then I would hop on 37 and then I would, I knew exactly where to turn to get here and all of that. So it's just so interesting to me that like, I wonder if we're just like kind of crippled a little bit because we have technology that we just rely on so much.
Probably, but also that is how I feel all the time. And like when we started driving, it was like beginning times of GPS.
It was, like Garmin's were a thing that like people had. Like it wasn't just on your phone.
And you had to like update it or sometimes, streets that now existed weren't there
or
in
like
your GPS.
Road closures.
That kind of stuff. So, and even with that, I still would get lost in the middle of nowhere. I would be like, I have literally no idea where I am. I have gone to this place 600 times in my life, my entire childhood. I have come to this place. I don't know where it is.
That's so funny.
Like I get lost everywhere.
Yeah.
I have had to call Ty sometimes if my GPS goes out now and
you're like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I'm like, I don't know where I am. You have to help me. And he's like, well, where are you? And I'm like, I don't know. There's a Subway near me. Like, he's like, that's not helpful.
A Subway station or a Subway sandwich shop? Because this could be a very different situation depending on your answer. Well, I think I may have said this on the podcast before, or I don't know, but like just to like indicate to some of our listeners, like, I don't know that some of our listeners are that much younger than we are, but if they are, just in our lifetime, it has changed so much because I remember being in college and my friend went to school up in Illinois and we were going to meet up and go to Milwaukee. And I literally printed out the like MapQuest directions.
I loved MapQuest.
Yes.
Because they were so easy and precise.
Just every step, just very, do this until this point.
I like this. Step-by-step instructions.
Yes. But I remember being so nervous. Like this was my first time I was going to like drive out of the state by myself. Mm-hmm. And I had to go through Chicago. And so I've got to figure that out. And I've got the fucking MapQuest printed out like it's 1987. And I'm like... I mean, it's just so crazy to me that like, I don't know if I had GPS on my phone at the time or not.
But at that time, MapQuest was high tech.
It was.
Because we used to like use it to get to friends' houses and things like that. And it was like, that's what we had was the MapQuest. You hopped on there, you got your instructions, and it was like, okay, if I know how to get here, I don't need to go anywhere else.
Yep.
Or you'd be like, okay, how do I get to my friend Molly's house? Then from Molly's house, how do I get to the Pizza Hut?
Right.
Then how do I get back to Molly's house? And that was like all you really needed to know. Yes.
Yeah.
And which is how I like my maps. That's always how my dad drew them for me when I was in high school and in college. And I think if we had to make a map, that's how it would be as well. We would have landmarks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you something else about in an awful world. Our states, quote unquote, if we have them, they're going to be perfect squares.
Oh, 100%. What is all these squiggles?
I cannot. And honestly, some of it is like, it's actual like
rivers.
Yes. That are like natural borders.
Yes.
Okay. But then I'm looking at that. I'm like, how am I going to draw that? You guys get this part of the river. We get this part of the river and it's fine.
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like unless our rivers are making like hard turns, they're straight on maps.
Yeah. I don't know that we're going to
squiggles.
We're not going to map that out.
I don't know how to make a river squiggle. Where does it squiggle?
I don't know. Where does it squiggle?
We can't figure it out. And you know what? At this point, I just don't want to know.
I know. So I read yesterday about topography. Cartography.
Cartography.
Not topography, which is related. But anyway, that it's like it's anticipated between 2023 and 2033 to be one of the fastest growing professions.
Why?
I have no idea. I really could not understand that. I was like, why do we need people to do that? Because we have satellites now.
Yeah, hasn't everything already been mapped out?
That's what I thought too. So I don't know we'll have to look into that. But if you're listening to this and you're looking for a new career, topography and cartography just may be for you.
I mean, I guess with this country's incoming president at this point, by the time this is out, our now sitting president.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like, what episode are we on? Oh, yeah.
And how he wants to invade other countries and make them part of our country, or just buy other countries. You know, I guess maps are going to have to be redrawn if something happens. I don't believe any of this will, but I don't know if people are just like assuming like we're going to have to be redrawing maps. World War III's on the way, and people are taking over left and right.
I don't know.
Besides that, I literally can't think of anything. Everything has been discovered, right? I can't think
yeah, I think so.
I mean, like with satellites, we've got pictures of the whole Earth. So don't you think we'd be like, what's that spot over there? Like if we hadn't, you know?
Yeah.
So at this point, I feel like everything's been discovered. Everything's been drawn. So I don't think we need a new version. I mean, people hate the Mercator map, but they're not the only map.
The Mercator haters hate the Mercator map. Say that 5 times fast.
I don't think I could. But outside of that, like, I think we're done. Unless we just want more maps that are like, okay, what's every state's favorite Halloween candy? You know, like that kind of crap.
Those are my favorite kinds of maps.
Mine too. Or like, what's their favorite swear word?
Or how do they say, how do they describe, soda or pop or water fountains or the bubbler in Wisconsin?
Which, okay, have you taken that quiz on, I think it's the New York Times website?
About like soda?
No, it's it's like a little quiz that you take, and then based off of the way that you say things,
it guesses where you're from.
Yes.
No, I don't think I've done it.
It is wildly accurate because I took it and it was like Fort Wayne, Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, and then like one other city. And I was like, that's crazy.
It knows that specifically?
Yes.
That's spooky.
Based off of the way that you say things. And I sent it to people at our work one time, but then the link wouldn't work. So I should find it again and like resend it out.
I want to know about
everybody
that.
Take it. But it's like there was that murder case that someone in our office is always talking about.
Yeah.
Where they call that piece of grass past the sidewalk that like just in this one area in Ohio, they call it like the Devil Strip.
Yes.
And they put that in their like note.
Yeah.
And that's how they were able to arrest the person.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, maps, they do so much.
I mean, they do. Speaking of maps doing so much, though, apparently, like, maps really became very, like, sophisticated during the wars because we were using it for strategy. I'm not surprised by that either. But I did read that in 1988, some, like, former Soviet person who was a cartographer admitted that they had falsified maps to try and throw people off. And I was like, wow, that's genius, but also crazy that we could live pretty recently in a world where they would falsify maps and we would just be like, all right, yeah, that's probably how it looks there.
I mean, but would you know any better? No,
like, not if you didn't have satellites.
Exactly. Like, I'm just saying, I can't find the squiggle in a river, so
I can't either.
Gonna just believe whatever the map tells me.
I know. Yeah, and I'm just gonna reiterate that, like, I still don't understand the mechanism. Like, I really don't get how we did it. Like, I don't know what the process, I have no idea. Even if you explained it to me, I wouldn't understand it. So there's no point in trying to explain it to me.
Now, here is one thing that I have heard, and I don't know if it's true because I am not transgender. Which I know it's like,
I was like, segue. All right.
That there are people who are transgender who have said that like when so say it's a trans man.
Okay.
When they were a woman, they had like no spatial awareness, no direction, like anything like that.
Okay.
But then when they take their testosterone and have transition, that the testosterone levels change their brain chemistry and they are better with spatial awareness and things like that.
That's interesting because men tend to be not self-aware, but
That's
interesting.
True. But that's why they're spatially aware, because they don't have to be aware of themselves, just what's around them.
Yeah. Interesting.
And vice versa. I've seen videos of people saying both ways. So I wonder if the male Haylies and Libbys could figure this out. Because maybe they could. Maybe it is a testosterone thing that has something to do with it. And I'm not saying that that's fully true, because it's not like there aren't women who,
were cartographers or understand spatial awareness.
Right. Yeah. Like, think Sacagawea.
Yeah. You're saying it wrong, but it's fine.
Sorry. But I'm just saying it could be something that could be considered.
Yeah, there's something to that.
So maybe if that were the case and the male Haylies and Libbys could figure it out, they could put a squiggle in a river. I don't know. Maybe they could figure it out. Maybe they could be in charge of maps.
Maybe. Yes. I mean, honestly, I could see there being something to that. Do you, I don't know if you've experienced this with the men in your life, but my boyfriend always, when we're in a restaurant, he wants to sit where he can see the door. If we're choosing which side of the table to sit on, he wants to sit where he can see the door. Why? I don't know.
I have not experienced that with the men in my life.
Just know what's going on around him. But it's interesting because when I say that men aren't self-aware, I truly mean in terms of if they're sitting next to a woman on a plane.
And they're man-spreading.
Yeah, they're man-spreading.
Yes.
Arms on both of the armrests, legs just splayed out.
They're aware.
Yeah, that's true.
They're aware.
That's true.
They know what they're doing. Let's just
let's
not kid ourselves. But there's a lot to people say don't put your bed right next to your door, where your head would be next to the door for safety purposes and things like that.
I don't think about that stuff.
I don't think about that either. So I'm I don't even know. And then there's feng shui, and that's a whole thing. And that's all spatial awareness and things like that. But I'm just kind of I don't think about any of that.
Yeah, I don't either. Maybe that is, more something that's just for the male brain.
Yeah. Or just people who have higher levels of testosterone than we do.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or maybe it's just...
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is. But I just thought that was an interesting anecdote. Yeah. But
that is interesting. I think that for us, for Haylies and Libbys, the devil's in the details. You know what I mean? We're just more focused on the kind of the smaller details of things.
Yeah.
Which means that we excel at a lot of things. But that also other areas suffer because of that. And one of those is just going to be cartography.
Yeah.
We're just, I'm just not confident we're going to figure it out. I literally wrote on my paper, in an awful world, ? I wish.
I also wish.
I truly wish that, because cartography, I had no idea how amazingly important it is, or was. And then, our technology has advanced so much, but it's crazy how, just the whole idea of cartography is nuts to me. So it's very important. Of course, it's shaped our world into what it is. And I wish that we could figure it out in an awful world. Just not feeling super confident about that.
I'm not either. Again, I think this is one of those where it will be a gray area. Will we have maps? Yes. But will they be what we would consider maps today? No. They're going to be very regional maps. They're going to be very much
small scale.
Yes. They're going to be not to scale.
No.
Nothing's going to be
They're probably
going
to have weird things, just go until you see this tree and then, go this way. And I like your idea of the streets being colorful, the trails. She's along the purple trail.
Yes, we'll color code. That's just easiest. We'll make little roads.
You're
we'll
looking
color
for Susie's house,
them.
just follow the purple trail.
That's right.
You'll hit it eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
Follow the purple brick road.
The ways that could have been so different. The yellow brick road. Well, anyway, do you have anything else to say about cartography?
No.
Me either. But it's an exhausting topic. Let me tell you. Well, thanks for listening. This was an interesting episode. I hope you found your way to our Patreon. You're not laughing. I can't hear you're laughing. So anyway, yes, our Patreon is still up and out there and ready for you. If you feel so inclined, pop over to patreon.com/anawfulworldpodcast. In the interim, check us out, on Facebook, Instagram, follow us, give us a like. We have some fun content and things on there. And also, continue listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, wherever you listen to our podcast. Find us there. In the meantime, we hope your day is simply awful. See you next time.